A winter storm train is coming, bringing the return of brutal winter conditions with tons of snow in some regions, while also introducing a round of severe weather capable of producing damaging winds and tornadoes to others. The first concern is a winter storm currently impacting the United States, with major problems stretching from the Midwest to the Northeast. The highest snowfall totals from this event could surpass 3 feet near the north shore of Minnesota, and a widespread swath of at least 3 inches of snow is expected all the way to the East Coast. But what follows this will be even more concerning. An even larger storm is set to move through the country Thursday into Saturday. This storm will not only bring up to a foot of snow to places like Wisconsin and Michigan, but will also introduce a risk of severe weather across the Midwest and Ohio Valley, where damaging winds and tornadoes are possible. Even after these 2 storms move through, the pattern refuses to quiet down. A swift return to winter conditions is expected across much of the country this weekend, as a fast-moving Arctic blast will deliver a potential flash freeze to areas that had already begun to feel like spring. Additionally, a major northeast winter storm is possible this weekend. We have a lot to talk about in today's forecast, and I want to begin with these large storms that'll be impacting the United States. And one of the most notable ones is going to be happening tomorrow, as we are expecting a mix of severe weather and heavy snowfall. I want to begin by touching on that severe weather threat for tomorrow, which is Thursday. The Storm Prediction Center has issued a slight risk of severe weather, which includes parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. So, if you're in Cincinnati, Indianapolis, or Louisville, you need to be staying weather-aware and very vigilant on Thursday, as we have a possibility of damaging winds, large hail, and even the risk of a few tornadoes. In fact, there is a 5% tornado risk in place across parts of Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio, where there will be a possibility of a few tornadoes during the afternoon and into the early evening hours. So, make sure that you are going over your tornado action plan today. That way, you are ready if there is a tornado warning in your location tomorrow. Let's talk more about the timing of all of these different storms, and we'll go more in detail about the timing of severe weather as well in just a moment. Let's begin with what is happening today. We have a large winter storm that is currently hammering the northern plains in the upper Midwest. The heaviest of that snowfall is happening in northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota this morning, where we are anticipating upwards of 1 to 2 feet of snow in some locations. Also along the West Coast and the Rockies, we have yet again another storm system that is making its way over the Rockies. And this is going to bring our severe weather threat on Thursday and even bring more snowfall to parts of the Midwest. And this one's going to be a bit further down to the south, so areas further south could see some snowfall on Thursday. Once we go into Wednesday afternoon and evening, this storm system across the upper Midwest and the Northeast is going to begin to weaken. With that said, we are expecting a little bit of light snowfall across parts of New England and also New York late tonight and then also into early tomorrow. Light snow will persist across the upper Midwest. Snow will continue across the Rockies, and then once we go into Thursday morning, we're going to be watching for a brand new storm system forming across the Central Plains. This one will not be nearly as intense when it comes to pressure. With that said, it will bring a risk of both severe weather on the east side of it, and then also some moderate to heavy snowfall, which should be primarily from Nebraska back into Wisconsin, Minnesota, and even Iowa. Thursday afternoon, this storm system will continue to move toward Chicago. We'll be watching for severe storms during the afternoon hours across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, back into the Tennessee Valley. And then snowfall will start to increase in coverage by late Thursday night into early Friday, and that is when we're expecting a much heavier band of snow to develop across Wisconsin. So areas like Wausau back over towards Minneapolis. This is where we could see some heavier bands of snowfall set up during the morning hours on Friday. Showers and storms will continue all up and down the east coast of the United States. And then yet again, another storm system is going to make its way over the Rockies early Friday. But this storm system is likely going to struggle a bit more, since there will not be nearly as much moisture, and it's not likely going to survive all the sinking air across the Central Plains. We're going to have also an Arctic air mass that's going to try to spill out of Canada at the same time. So there's going to be a lot of things happening at once. This storm system may not survive, but it could bring some light snow showers to parts of Kansas, maybe Oklahoma, northern Arkansas during the early day on Saturday. The storm system will continue across the northeast Saturday morning, bringing some light snowfall, maybe some showers and thunderstorms across the southeast on Saturday. Severe weather remains uncertain at this time. And then, once we go into Sunday and Monday, things continue to remain very uncertain depending on the evolution of the storm system. Yes, there is a possibility that parts of the Ohio Valley and Northeast could have a widespread snow event late Sunday into early Monday as an intense storm system develops offshore of the East Coast. The European model doesn't have this very intense, and it really doesn't develop into much. But if we look at the GFS model, it's a very different story as this storm system rapidly intensifies almost into a bomb cyclone as we go into Monday, with the possibility of a nor'easter. But keep in mind the GFS model here is keeping it still fairly offshore. So we'd have to see a shift back to the west and also see the same intensity that the GFS model is showing here for there to be an intense storm system across the northeast. So this right here could end up happening, but it's uncertain for right now. And one thing I do want to point out is that the Weather Prediction Center has outlined coastal regions from Boston, Massachusetts back towards Washington, D.C. in a heavy snow risk for the Monday time frame. So this is an area that we'll be keeping a very close eye on. Again, it's not just a couple models showing a winter storm. It is a legit threat that we need to keep an eye on because if it does happen, we could see feet of snow. But it's going to come down to where this storm sets up and how intense it is. And something that you do not see very often in the month of February is a dangerous, severe weather setup when it comes to our severe weather threat tomorrow. We actually have unseasonably warm temperatures coupled with dew points that should be high enough to promote at least some severe weather tomorrow across parts of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. Dew points are forecasted to be at least in the mid to upper 50s and low 60s, and this is going to be sufficient for a possibility of a few tornadoes. But this severe weather setup is not for certain, as there are some fail modes that could end up occurring. One of which is that the dew points are too low. If dew points are below 55, we could easily have elevated thunderstorms, which means tornadoes are going to be a lot harder to come by. Even though our wind shear is going to be pretty high tomorrow, that is one thing that could happen. Instability could also lack, and storm mode could also be a problem with all the convection that could be out there tomorrow morning. This one looks like right around lunchtime tomorrow. We'll have a little cluster of storms ongoing somewhere around St. Louis. These will be mostly hailstorms. Not expecting much of a tornado risk with this activity. Once we get closer to 2 to 3 o'clock, though, is when things could get a little bit more interesting. As our dew points rise and moisture lifts out of the south and our temperatures begin to increase as well. This should allow for some storms in this cluster here to become a bit more surface-based, and it may promote a better shot of a couple of tornadoes. This will be sometime around 2 to 3, and eventually by 4 to 5 o'clock storms become more widespread. I think really the area that we need to keep the closest eye on tomorrow will be back over here to the west of that convection. If our atmosphere becomes unstable enough behind this convection, keep in mind the convection out in front of it will cool things down. It'll stabilize the environment, but if we get enough instability behind this, we could see a few supercells fire off just east of St. Louis. If that happens, tornadoes are going to become a lot more likely tomorrow afternoon. If that doesn't happen, we could just have a messy area of showers and thunderstorms with a localized, isolated tornado or two. So, those are a couple of the scenarios that are at play during the daytime on Thursday. Once we go into the evening hours, this cluster of thunderstorms will continue to lift to the north and east, going towards Columbus, just to the north of Cincinnati. Localized tornado threat should continue across southern Indiana, southwest Ohio, through about 9 o'clock or so. And then things will become a lot more just stormy across the board, a lot more rainy, not really talking about much of a severe weather risk after midnight. Plenty of showers and storms trailing from Louisiana back into New York. And then heavy snowfall will be ongoing by Friday morning across Wisconsin, Iowa, and parts of Michigan, which could mean that travel will be impacted significantly in these areas as near blizzard conditions are possible. In terms of total snowfall over the next 7 to 10 days, we are expecting the majority of our snow between now and February 25th to be across the northern plains, the Midwest, and the Northeast. There's always a possibility down the road that something could happen down in here. The main reason why is because we have an Arctic blast coming, and we'll talk more about that here in just a moment. But if you're back over in the upper Midwest, this is pretty impressive. Over just the next 24 to 48 hours, we are talking about 2 to 3 feet of snow near Duluth back into far northeastern Minnesota. That is not something that you see too often out of one singular winter storm event. But once we go past Thursday and Friday, we are anticipating at least a few inches of snow from northwestern Iowa and even into eastern Nebraska back towards Minneapolis and northern Wisconsin. Widespread 2 to 5 inches of snow is on the table. Some localized areas near Minneapolis, and especially in northern Wisconsin, could easily have more snowfall than that. I'm honestly a little bit surprised. These numbers do feel a little bit low to me with what's going to be happening Friday morning, but nonetheless, I do think we'll at least see a few inches of snow out of that event. And then beyond that, things become more uncertain. I know it shows a widespread swath of snow around Sunday and Monday here across the Midwest, but this right here is a massive question mark for right now. But stay tuned, we'll keep you posted with the latest on any sort of snow chances that are upcoming. And then the temperatures are going to be on a whole new level here over the next 5 to 7 days. We are dealing with above-average temperatures east of the Rockies. West of the Rockies is mostly below average temperatures. But notice this right here. We have an Arctic air mass that is building up across the Pacific Northwest, back into parts of Canada. Once we go into Friday into Saturday, some of this will try to unleash across the Midwest and the northern plains, but won't really have a whole lot of success with getting that far down to the south. So, winter conditions really only going to be felt across the northern tier of the country. But once we go into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, that is when it's all going to swing around with a completely different low-pressure system located over the Great Lakes in the northeast. And this will lead to temperatures dropping by as much as 40 degrees in some locations Sunday into early Monday. But that's not all, because by the time of the middle and end of next week, we could have yet again another shot of Arctic air, especially across the Midwest and the Northeast. And that one could be also pretty impactful. Could bring some snowfall a little bit further down to the south as well. So again, things look to be pretty active. Winter is definitely not over. If you want some snowfall, I do think we're going to have some good snow chances here by the end of February and into early March. And we are truly going to be on a temperature roller coaster over the next 7 days. This is just downright crazy. We're talking about 60s and 70s for high temperatures even into Chicago, Illinois for today. 80s and 90s back over in South Texas. Again, just unbelievable stuff across the board. Tomorrow afternoon will be equally as warm across the Ohio Valley. Temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Once we go into Friday into Saturday, though, we'll go back to normal when it comes to winter weather. Temperatures will once again drop below freezing. I do think Monday and Tuesday will end up being the coldest days of the week across the country. Low temperatures all across the Ohio Valley back into the southeast will drop back into the 30s. So, if you are planting anywhere back down in Georgia, Alabama, do not do that yet because temperatures will once again drop below freezing. Same thing with Tuesday morning. Many areas even as far south as Florida will get right around or just below freezing. So, make sure that you're protecting sensitive vegetation. The pattern that is developing represents a particularly complex and dangerous weather situation where multiple storm systems are interacting with dramatic temperature contrasts to create a variety of hazardous conditions across different regions of the country simultaneously. This type of active pattern requires constant vigilance and preparation for rapidly changing conditions as each system moves through and influences the development of subsequent systems. What makes this situation especially concerning is the potential for compounding impacts, where communities may face multiple types of severe weather in rapid succession without adequate time for recovery between events. The combination of winter storm conditions, severe thunderstorm and tornado threats, and Arctic blast conditions creates a scenario where different regions face different but equally dangerous hazards during the same time period. The uncertainty in the longer-range forecast models highlights the challenges meteorologists face when trying to predict the evolution of such complex atmospheric patterns, particularly when multiple storm systems are interacting and the potential for rapid intensification exists in several different scenarios.